Hello, everyone. My name is Sanjeev Walling, CEO and co-founder at Avira Digital. Avira Digital is a digital transformation company specializing in medical affairs planning and strategy digitization. Welcome, Roberto, for this podcast series, which we focuses on redefining the medical affairs and evidence management digitization and today who is a senior medical director real world evidences specifically around the digital side for Sanofi North America. And Roberto has been with Sanofi for over 11 years. So let's hear more from Roberto himself. Roberto, how about you introducing yourself and would like to hear your journey?
First and foremost, thank you so much, Sanjeev and Avira, for having me here in this podcast. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. I am Roberto Araujo. I am a clinical geneticist and neurologist by training, also with some training in neuroscience. My journey in industry has been with Sanofi for over the past 11 years. Prior to that, I have had a journey as being an entrepreneur and having my own diagnostic and research laboratory, also being an academic and doing research and private practice. But it's a pleasure to be here today to share with you what I've learned, what I see, and I just want to make it clear that this is my own perspective and not my company's perspective.
Fantastic. Thank you, Roberto. So pleasure to have you here. So quick, just give your industry perspective around the emerging trends or innovations you believe that will redefine the entire medical affairs in the next 5 years. Especially on the data, AI, digitization is a very big movement in the medical and the pharma overall. So would love to hear your what do you think about emerging trends or innovations which you believe will redefine the role?
Absolutely. I think we are living in a very exciting time that technology is reaching a state that is actually allowing us to answer questions. And I like to put this in perspective. It's not necessarily the technology who is driving this, but it's our ability to ask questions and have the technology serve us to answer those questions. And is meeting these two needs that is actually driving this exciting moments that we are right now. Understanding that we are really driven by the technological advancements, but not only, we also have significant changes in the regulatory sphere, how this analytical potentials and strategies, how can they be interpreted and assimilated to aid, support regulatory packages and whatnot. And also the whole healthcare evolving dynamics. I think it's needless to say, without the availability of electronic medical records and large databases in centers for so many things like billing codes and whatnot, we wouldn't be able to actually drive some of the things that I may touch now or later during our conversation today. That's where we have been and are now in this exciting moment of actually discovering all these new tools and asking questions and trying to find the answers and the right way to go about it and how to actually understand the answers we get back, which is also very important. So I think for the next 5 years, and to answer your questions, we have several trends that we are likely to see that can really redefine the role of medical affairs. And I'll start by probably one of the most important, which I think is really supporting medical to have that key strategic role in allowing for more data-driven decision-making. I think we all understand from the past that a lot of decision-making has been made by best guesses, hints, gut feelings sometimes.
Absolutely.
And I think right now we have this benefit of having this data-driven decision-making opportunity with a real emphasis on the real-world evidence and how it will grow. And we really need medical affairs to support us in leveraging this real world data to prove the safety, the efficacy, and the value of our therapies in
Absolutely.
the most diverse patient populations now. Also, now with the new inclusion of diverse populations in our clinical trials, driven by the global need. Really, it's an exciting moment that we can actually start to understand a little bit beyond our general suppositions that we had in the past. And this will also require some more deeper collaboration with health economists and data scientists. So I see medical as a key strategic player in the communication, the understanding, the interpretation of all these elements. And then we have also the big data analytics, still with this data-driven decision-making topic, that is actually utilizing this advanced tools that can help the medical affairs teams to actually make those informed decisions, to actually understand market dynamics. Because medical affairs is very well positioned. They understand the patients, they understand the disease, they understand the health system. But what was missing is what are the dynamics in real time? What is happening? And now we have the tools to actually add that information in, which can support identifying actually unmet medical needs more efficiently and actually faster. Then I will, this is actually a little bit longer of an answer, but I think it's important to cover all the elements because there are many. We also have the digital transformation. It's not only about data and technology, it's also about engagement. We saw through COVID and now with the more widespread use of technologies, even being here at this podcast, how telemedicine and remote engagement can actually support the medical affairs to adapt their strategies with virtual reality more to the point, more closer to the bedside, really, with the healthcare professionals, focusing on that more personalized communications, really cutting the fluff, as I like to say, and really focusing all those educational initiatives. And in that, we also allow more freedom for the healthcare professional because we can now create content that can be mobile, that we don't need to rely only on our MSL's visits, on our face-to-face, or even on our virtual engagements, but we can also keep delivering those contexts that go beyond the pamphlet or the publication that can be delivered continuously and adapted to the needs of each individual HCP and even personalized to some extent to the healthcare professionals. So I think this is really good. And also to patients. I think now the gold mine, as I like to say, is how do we integrate all of this in a manner that is efficient and compliant, and we can actually start to derive all the insights from all of these engagements and interactions.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were going to say, but I was going to continue to say like the personalized medicine, it's also a topic that is extremely important, precision medicine. We can use this in biomarker research. With this, we can grow for more targeted therapies. And now we can see medical affairs having more strategic impact even earlier in development than we used to have. So I think also supporting the life cycle in a more broadly manner is super important. And working with the healthcare providers in different ways and maybe sitting at the table and having those conversations in different ways, also aided by all this information. And also geared towards perhaps more patient-centric approaches, emphasizing a little bit more on what are the needs of the patients? What are the patient outcomes that will be paramount? How can medical affairs collaborate with the multiple stakeholders to gather those insights and understand the patient's preferences and even inform the clinical trial design on what those preferences may be? And I think all of this to support that strategic play of medical affairs within the pharmaceutical industry it's important because, as I've been saying in all these examples, this really supports medical to be much more of a key cross-functional team player, really engaging, because I've already mentioned patients, public affairs, patient advocacy, HEVA, health outcomes analysis. We're talking about real-world evidence. We are talking about regulatory. We are talking about development, early development, life cycle, maybe post-marketing, late post-marketing analysis. So many things that can now be done. Also commercial, always been a very important relationship of medical affairs, but will continue to grow. That's within the pharma, but I think I've already also alluded to how that can be key to the external partnerships and collaborations that medical can support greatly now with academic institutions and so on and so forth. Yeah, and I think I could go on. The last
Absolutely.
thing I will say, just to keep it on the topic of digital, is really the importance of the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning, really understanding the predictive analytics. And I think the role of medical here is to support, to drive how AI can help predict trends and patient behaviors and treatment efficiency. How can we make medical affairs function more proactive rather than reactive? Okay. And also utilizing and engaging and advertising even how can we use these AI enhanced engagement tools like the advanced algorithms to optimize patient finding for trials or for marketed products, how we can communicate better, more tailored to individual preferences, so on.
Thank you. I think it is, I've been taking some notes. You've been covering a lot of right trainings or the trends in the industry. So thank you so much for giving that insight. And Roberto, the pharma industry always going through the transition, and these cycles are driven by either the innovation or product life cycle, or sometimes they have a blockbuster drug product coming out, or to the specialties. The innovations are can be driven by various innovation cycles. Since you worked in the real world evidences, and I think you touched upon in your introductions about the growth of the data, advancement on AI, and how do you see this innovation transforming all integrated evidence strategies or impacting the certain specialty area which you are working on? How do you see the pharma landscape in particularly shifting more strategic function? I think medical affairs is shifting towards a more strategic and central function in the pharma. Just wanted to see what's your point of view on that.
I strongly believe so. I think one of the key elements that this technologies allows us is to actually tap into multiple sources of information. But then these multiple sources of information have to be somewhat combined. And I think medical affairs has a key strategic role in guiding on how to actually combine, because this data is not collected the same, right? So there needs to be that knowledge of the patient, disease, and system, which medical has, in order to be able to guide on what is what and how do we connect the dots. So that's on the analytical phase. And then I think on the interpretation, that is key, right? So then looking at the outcomes of this amalgamation, a combination of factors, it's very easy to get noise, to maybe get something that goes in the wrong direction, or something that it's actually not real. It seems like the data is telling us something, but is it really telling us that? So I think medical really plays that key role in doing this critical interpretation of what the data is telling us. What should we take from this exercise? And then the next step is, what are we going to communicate about it? So really showing medical, because of the expertises and experiences that the medical function combine, connecting medical with the other cross functions will make all of this process so much more solid, so much more pointed. And really, that's the aim, right? So we are really talking here about deriving the correct either evidence or insights in understanding them rightly and then communicating them correctly. Without these three factors, all the technology is worthless, right? It doesn't actually tell us anything. So that's
Exactly.
why I think medical, to answer your question, really is critical and a strategic partner with all these amazing functions that actually have so much to contribute, but medical plays a key role in my view.
Fantastic. And Roberto, you worked in the rare diseases area, right? Rare diseases, by definition, it affect the small percentage of the population. But if you really look at it collectively, they impact the millions worldwide, right?
Yeah, yeah,
One of the biggest challenges in the rare disease and research and treatments, we feel that it's a data scarcity, right?
yeah,
And since the patient populations are small and also geographically dispersed, gathering the robust clinical or evidences is very difficult, right?
yeah,
That makes it harder to develop the effective treatments or large scale clinical trials, real world evidences, and whatnot, right? Given these
absolutely.
challenges, Roberto, AI and advanced analytics have the potential to play transformative role, right? In overcoming the data limitation and enhancing the evidence generation. Would love to know from your point of view, what is a rare disease often face significant challenges and how AI and analytics will bridge that gap? Any point
Oh,
of view?
okay. Thank you. You basically said it. Data scarcity is one of the top issues that we encountered. And it's not an easy one to solve. But there are ways to mitigate and minimize and extract the best that we can. And I can give a few examples.
Please.
Now we have tools like the data integration of diverse sources, like I mentioned just before. So this allows us to mine diverse data sets. So even if one data set's small, we can maybe combine several small data sets and get a larger one. Is it still large enough? Most of the times, not really, but it's better than the smaller individual data set that we started with. And as I alluded in my introduction, the electronic health records are key for this. The clinical trial registries, the biobanks, the patient registries, the social media, published literature, all can now be combined so that we can try to understand patterns and we can understand preferences and we can understand directions, which is extremely important.
Okay.
This gives us a more real view and real time interesting view. And then things like natural language processing, of course. AI can extract relevant information from unstructured data. So that can be clinical notes, that can be research articles, that can be patient forums, can be transcripts, whatever it is. And it can identify patterns, insights that really can capture a lot of essential information that maybe wouldn't be captured otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing is potentially also enhancing, patient recruitment.
Mhm.
So the ability of utilizing the AI algorithms to help identify eligible patients or potential candidates for clinical trials, that going through this multiple data sources is also very important for rare diseases. This can speed up the process and can help us actually get to a better sample of the population, a more representative analysis of outcomes, less loss to follow up, things. And also can allow us to target more specific populations if needed. We do this global international clinical trials, but how often it is that specific populations need specific attention, need to be singled out and analyzed in a different way. Now we have the tools to actually do it. And I think when we talk about real world evidence, we focus on the idea of generating evidence. But I
Absolutely.
always like to bring in that is one piece of the pie. There is another big piece of the pie, which is actually generating insights. And for medical affairs, that is critical because those insights that we can drive from advanced analytics can actually help us go back to our colleagues and help drive that strategy on what are we going to do to address these unmet medical needs? What are we going to do to actually show the efficacy and the safety of this treatment? How are we going to show the patients and the HCPs that this is going to be beneficial or has the potential of being beneficial for them? And I think also now that we have so many experiences with so many treatments out there, we cannot forget the importance of understanding longitudinal data, especially long-term data, right? So we cannot forget the phase 4 studies and the registries and all of this and the retrospective chart reviews, that all of these things that are out there that really support us to not only understand more about the treatments, also to understand more about the disease and how it is evolving and how the healthcare system is adapting to address those needs, and sometimes even what new needs are emerging. And is there an opportunity for us to inform clinical development of potential needs that need to be addressed and things that we need to invest in?
No, absolutely. Thank you. That is so important what you just brought it up to everybody's attention here. And see, you also mentioned about the while you want to do the global approach to these researches while addressing the specific local healthcare needs, right?
Absolutely.
On one hand, you're talking about a global collaboration, which is very crucial for pulling the data, accelerating research, and whatnot, or regulatory alignments. On the other hand, you have an healthcare infrastructure and access to the treatment and regulatory varies all the countries, and this need to be tailored. So striking the right balance between the global priorities, local needs is a key for evidence generation in both scientifically rigorous and practically implicable, right?
Yes.
So my question around it, and I also you touched upon one more topic on the social media data, right?
Yes.
Whether it's Twitter, Facebooks, YouTube, whatnot, right? Nowadays, we see that the competitive intelligence, taking a real-time intelligence and monitoring, tracking the competitive activities is very important for your launches, for your market shares, for your market share.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
what are the key considerations when you're developing the evidence generation strategies that balances these global priorities with local needs? Yeah.
That's a great question. And I think it's a complex question that goes in many layers. But I'll start by saying, I think the first important thing to address is really understanding what is the local healthcare context. Because without that, it's so easy to go in a nonsense or a dead end direction, right? What do I mean by that? It's important to understand what are the epidemiological differences, recognizing prevalence, incidence of the disease in different regions before you even start any of these approaches, and really understand how the data should reflect the local disease burden and how that can facilitate understanding unique patient populations that may not be reflected in the global approach.
Okay.
And then I think, again, key to understand the healthcare infrastructure. What is the system? What are the resources available? What are the access challenges? Understand how healthcare is delivered in the local setting and how that is essential for tailoring that potential evidence generation approach. Then, one thing we didn't talk about yet, but is key is regulatory requirements and compliance, right? So what are the local regulatory contents? Can we align the evidence generation strategy with the regulatory requirements in which region or country? Understand that we can be varied, and do we need tailored approach? Do we need to consider different data privacy considerations? Because we mentioned about tapping into different data sources and whatnot. And this important, and also ethical considerations. For me, ethics and culture go together. So I think it's important to understand what is the ethics and the culture of that place to really be able to provide what is needed and allowed, right? And that will be accepted. And I think key to engage with the local stakeholders. If we don't have that engagement involving the healthcare providers, the researchers, the institutions, leveraging their insights and expertise, add that into a feedback loop to the entire approach from beginning to end, you likely will not. It would be more difficult to reach something more impactful. And never forget, I think we always forget, but never forget that patient and caregiver. Cannot forget that it's not the patient in isolation, it's also the caregiver that has to provide also input. And difficult then to balance, right? Global with local objectives. But I think medical can support establishing some flexibility in strategies and allowing a global approach that is more overarching and covers more ground and more commonalities of things that are needed, and then allowing for that local flexibility to either be reinterpretation, which then will save a lot of money and a lot of time, or be a simple add-on that can really address a specific need. And I think the technology is really helping us there, which then will make our treatments available potentially to more people and faster. And for that knowledge to be disseminated faster, and for those insights and feedback to be looked back in unprecedented ways.
Absolutely. Roberto, thank you so much for participating and giving your perspective on how these companies are redefining their digital strategies, data strategies, AI, and how this is all impactful partnership between the medical affairs and the overall healthcare ecosystem with the different divisions, different globally functions. So thank you so much. Sincerely appreciate on behalf of Avira Digital, and learn more about our organization as a partner with Avira Digital in the medical affairs planning and end-to-end integrated evidence planning strategies, digitization, measuring the impact via analytics services, social listening, and medical planning for different launch and evidence purposes. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. And looking forward having more discussion with you.
Thank you. It has been such a pleasure, and what a great initiative you have here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.